Today we're returning to the Owl House with the episode Escape of the Palisman, which, man, this is going to sound like I'm ragging on the episode. I usually laugh at least once in an Owl House episode. I didn't find this one funny at all. It's interesting, don't get me wrong. I'm going to go over the story in a second, as I always do. And this one's definitely interesting. It sets some stuff up and pays some stuff off. But I didn't find the humor in this one even remotely amusing. Like, there's this whole subplot, and it kind of drives the conflict of this one about King starting up a rivalry with a small child at a playground because Ida and Luz take him to the playground because he's a big baby. And like literally all of the conflicts in this episode, in the specific form that they take in this episode, occur because when Ida succumbs to the curse again and turns into the owl beast, he realizes that for whatever reason she's in a suggestible state this time, and wants to take her to strike terror into the hearts of that kid and the other kids on the playground. And like that was clearly supposed to be the humorous through line of the episode. I just didn't think it was funny. Even when it turns out that his rival is actually way more sinister than he seemed at first. Like, it was amusing, but it wasn't really funny to me. I'm sure it was to some people, and I'm happy for him. I don't know, I smiled a little bit at it, I guess, but that was about it. It's also worth noting here, since I already mentioned that Ida becomes the owl beast again in this one. We do find out at the end of this episode that the elixir's not working anymore, or at the very least she has to take way more of it now. That the curse is slowly overtaking her more and more, which is setting up for the fact that she's going to get a new solution to the curse by the end of the season, which I thought was cool. We're technically halfway through the season at this point, a little more than halfway, even probably, because this is episode number 10 of 19, I think, right? But still, this is pretty early to be setting up a thing that happens at the very end of the season. Kudos, Owl House. That said, the main plot of this one is about Luz. She's the main character of the show, of course, so that makes sense. And her plot was way more interesting to me even than the revelation that the elixir is not working as well anymore. Even my first time watching this episode, I found the Luz stuff in this one significantly more interesting. I had to rewatch the episode to remember it, because if you'll recall, back when I think she's called the Bat Queen was in it last time, I said I think she comes back later. She definitely comes back later. She's a major player in this episode. As soon as I started watching the episode, though, it all came flooding back to me. This one's actually pretty memorable. We get a little bit of exposition at the beginning of the episode about Palismans, using Albert as an example, just so we'll understand what happens later in the episode better. Which is cool. Like, Albert's been here the entire time. He's been a part of Ida's staff throughout the entire show up to this point, but we haven't really heard anybody talk about him much. Like describe what he is or exposit how he functions. This is really the first time we got any of that, and it's handed out to us very quickly and concisely, feeling like an offhand conversation between two people, one of whom is trying to learn from the other, and yet that little bit of concise exposition plays heavily into this episode's climax. After Luz accidentally causes herself and her friends to miss the bus to an away, Grudgeby? An away Grudgeby game, a play on rugby. She realizes that she can still get them there using Ida's staff, aka Albert, to fly them there. But because King has already started to enact his plan and doesn't want Luz to find out about it, she doesn't get to ask Ida first. King just insists that Ida would be okay with that, which I really don't think she would have, right? And because Luz hasn't had any experience flying a staff yet, she crashes Albert and injures him in the woods. And he gets all scared and runs off, only to be found by the Bat Queen, who turns out to be a giant Palisman. She has made her home in the woods so that she can guard discarded Palismans out of the way from people who might do them further harm. And even though she knows Luz and knows Luz's teacher and should at least kind of trust her. She's been so harmed by her past, even though she can't really remember the details of it, which is a cool detail I'll talk about in a second. She's been so harmed by her past that even when Lou's, through several trials, proves to be trustworthy, she at first refuses to give Albert back. She's projecting her own trauma onto him, which is interesting because a lot of stories fail to acknowledge that trauma carries past the point that you forget the specific reason why you have it. This episode did that, and I appreciate that a lot. But Luz, using the information gleaned from that exposition from earlier, is able to recognize that the Bat Queen is a Palisman and talk things through with her. We learn that she was the Palisman to a giant, but she doesn't really remember what happened, just that she and that giant aren't together anymore, and it hurts. And it ends with Luz getting Albert back, convincing her to give her Albert back. In fact, Albert stands up for her. And most interestingly, Luz offering to help the Bat Queen find out about her past if she ever decides she wants to know. And like, I'm probably wrong about this because the scale would be pretty off because the Bat Queen's not that massive, right? But I'm sitting here trying to think, whose Palisman could she be? Because that tease there, the episode basically promising us that at some point in the future, we are going to find out who her master was, her partner was, I guess. Be the better way to say that. I get the feeling that it's supposed to be someone or something that's already been in the show before, which makes me wonder, is she going to turn out to be like the Palisman for that Titan thing that their entire society is built around? Because we know it's a source of magic, so it makes sense that it was like a giant witch, right? If she is, it might even explain why she seems so much more fleshy and organic than even the other Palismans do. It's because she's like the model for all of them, the original, the prototype, maybe even the source of the concept itself, just like the Titan is the source of the magic for this society. And there are theories going around, several of them taking several different forms, that Emperor Belos is exploiting the Titan in some way that it was never supposed to be exploited. If the Bat Queen really is tied to the Titan in some way, then learning her backstory could help us learn more about that, which would be a really nifty way to bring that lore into the show. I could just be reading too much into things. I'm not, like, super immersed into the lore and the fandom of this show, so there are details I'm probably missing. I also don't remember the subsequent episodes super well, right? So there could be details I'm forgetting that disprove this as soon as next episode. So if I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments. In fact, let's get a discussion about this episode going in the comments just in general, because as I alluded before, the implications of this episode are really the most interesting part of it to me. So expect me to reply if you say anything even halfway insightful. But I do, of course, want to know what you think of this episode, as per usual. While you're down there, you might as well like the video as well and share it with anyone else you think might enjoy my content. Subscribe if you haven't. I'm trying to get myself out there, and I'd really appreciate it if you guys could help. You can check out my social medias as well. Links to those will be in the video description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.